Well, I'm going to start this off by saying it's wonderful to get to play guitar outside. That's a real perk of the good weather. A lot of perks of good weather, but one of my favorite ones is now I can play guitar outside without, you know, it taking its toll on my guitar in the cold, and also, my fingers. It's hard to play when your fingers are stiff from the cold. Anyway, that's awesome. But the last video, I talked a little bit about songwriting. It was just like a 5-minute or so video. And I think I focused more on how I start writing songs, how I get kind of a seed of a song, how I improvise vocal melodies, things like that. But I didn't get into lyrics. I didn't have time to. I think I did mention that often, I'll start with the basic progression, and I think the example I used was just a 2-chord progression, like an E minor C G progression, like something like kind of forlorn, and over that, maybe I'll start improvising some vocal parts. Maybe I'll get a line, and maybe that line will actually serve as a seed for all of my other lyrics in the song, because it will define the theme. Maybe not right away, but it'll put me in a headspace that will help me to actually begin writing the rest of the lyrics for the tune. I may not even use that line, but it might just give me that vibe, so I can sit down and effectively start writing poetry to the music. Everyone has a different approach to this. There's not a right or wrong way. Whatever works for you. I have heard of some people writing their lyrics preemptively and then kind of fitting them to the music. I've never enjoyed doing that. For me, the problem I've often had with that, with one exception, the song Thaw I wrote, I did start with a few lines as a long form poem, that I did pull those and use them in the song. But for me, often what happens is subconsciously, the type of words I use, the vowels, consonants, all that, only exist because of the music itself. So they end up just fitting by default, as compared to trying to shoehorn the song, and then maybe, depending on the word, it just feels forced, or it feels like you're kind of, now you have to start removing, you have to start removing words to kind of fit it in there. I like to really flow and kind of like using this as an example. I'm not a rapper, but Eminem was very famous for doing this. He was very famous for bending vowels and bending words to suit the song, and I like doing that. I also like really depending on improv. I hope you like my chickens over there. They're a lot quieter than my neighbor's rooster, though they're getting a little excited right now. I think I need to give them some food. They knocked over their feeder. Anyway, there's my ADD for you. So my approach with lyrics, once I have the guts of a song, or the bones of a song rather, lyrics I guess are the guts. Once I have the bones of a song, meaning maybe the chord progressions, the various changes, maybe verse and chorus, it just kind of depends. But when I'm really starting to think about lyrics, I start with a lot of improv. I improvise over it, and I get some lines that way. And that'll serve as sort of the theme, in many cases, of the song itself. I may not know what the song's about right away. I often don't. I start playing, I get a feel, I feel a certain way. I have to feel a connection to the music. And then I'll improvise maybe a line, like I said, and that line will serve to help me write the rest of the lyrics. And it allows the lyrics, rather than just being like long-form poetry, which I have a lot of experience with. I should have mentioned, I used to write a lot of poetry back in the day, and I wrote short stories. But rather than just retrofitting a poem to music, the music helps me to create the poem, or rather helps me to create the lyrics. And this allows those lyrics to really fit musically, and there's that rooster. It allows the lyrics to really fit musically to the song, rather than shoehorning it into the song later. And it also allows me to sort of use that. There's this principle. I heard Philip Glass say it. Philip Glass I believe he's still around. He should be. I hope so. Yeah, he was amazing. Is amazing. He's a composer, film composer, famous for a lot of movies. One being the Candyman soundtrack. It was a horror film in the 90s. But had this really cool melody. Anyway, I'm going ADD on you. So Philip Glass said, first idea, best idea. And which really, for me, that really kind of corroborates what I'm saying, that the improvisational element of lyric writing is extremely useful. And again, everyone does it differently. I'm not going to tell anyone. If you write your poems first, your lyrics first, and you can make them fit well to the song to where it musically sounds good, not only the words and not only your lyrics, but it musically flows right, good on you. Do it that way. For me, I don't work well that way. I've done that a few times with mixed results. Whereas if I start with the music, or at least the beginnings of a song, and I just start flowing over it, like the way someone like Eminem would do, or like with rap. If I just start flowing over it, I get a lot more. And often the music and the vocal melodies themselves, you know, the words, the vowels, the way they're sung, all of that tends to just come together for me. And that just could be my experience. It's not everybody else's necessarily, but it's been my experience, and that's just the way I approach songs, you know. This video is already getting long. Again, I keep doing that. But yeah, I suppose I could keep it going, and I can just put it on YouTube and link everyone to it if anyone's interested. But yeah, so for me, like I said, the beginnings of the song often start with some very basic chord progression or something, and it's got to have, for me, an emotional pull to it. It has to take me somewhere, and that will often dictate the theme of the song. Maybe not right away. Maybe it's just a vibe. Like not all my songs most of my songs aren't about my personal life experiences, right? Some of them are just outside observations of other people. Some of them are just completely fictional. Like one song being like Nightcap Darling, that song, it's a vibe song. I wrote it just from playing in different bars and stuff, and just kind of the feeling of a smoky bar, even though we can't smoke in Washington. But I just had this image in my head, and it just sort of, yeah, it isn't about anything particularly, but it definitely has a vibe and a theme. But then I have songs that, maybe they are about, just observations of other people, the spaces between people, connecting with other people. Sometimes they're based on pure fiction. Like I did one like 9 years ago that I'm going to revive soon, for The Prettiest Girl in Würzburg. That one it's about some dark history in the 17th century, witch trials in Germany that were horrific, but it has a supernatural element to it, potentially. And it's very fictional, but it's also, sort of. It's based on true history, but it also has a lot of fiction in it. But I assume the role of a character that I created within the song, and so I don't think there's really a rule on how to do this. If you want to be a storyteller, make up your own stories, do that. If you want to sing about your life and write about your life, do that. Other people's, just passive observations. I do all that. I just let the music dictate the lyrics. And as for lyric writing, which I didn't even really touch on, hardly at all in terms of how I come up with it, one thing I would suggest for a songwriter is get into poetry. Get into short stories. I've been a big short story and poetry guy since I was like a kid. I think I would have called myself a writer at a young age before I was as much a musician. I always sang, played some violin in elementary school, but in terms of writing songs, I was writing stories way before I was writing songs, and poetry too. And so that part came a little more naturally to me. But yeah, I think a lot of songwriters could really benefit from, just immersing themselves in, in the written word, and yeah, anyway, the video is now almost 9 minutes, it's about to be, and I rambled a lot. I do that, and I hope you found something useful out of this. I'll do more of these if people continue to express interest in learning about my process, or just kind of how I approach songwriting, as haphazard and chaotic as it is. But yeah, you all have a wonderful day. If you live in the Pacific Northwest, it is beautiful out today. And if you don't, well, there's a good chance it's beautiful where you are too, because we rarely get days like this, as per the stereotype, but the weather is turning around now. So anyway, happy Saturday, and hope you all have a good one.